All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the shadows of what is frankly one of the most jarring government reversals in modern history. We are looking at the 2026 Pentagon disclosure. For literally decades, the official stance on unidentified aerial phenomena, what we all used to call UFOs, has been just absolute, unwavering denial. But suddenly, the vault has been cracked open. As an investigator, look, when the official narrative flips overnight like that, the very first thing you have to ask yourself is, why? What is actually hidden inside these forbidden UAP files? And maybe more importantly, why on earth are we finally being allowed to see them right now?
I want you to just listen to this and really sit with it for a second. For decades, they told us there was nothing to see, no evidence, no proof. But in 2026, this right here perfectly captures the sheer whiplash of the situation we're analyzing today. The government apparatus spent generations ridiculing anyone who asked questions. They classified documents, they ruined careers, and they insisted our skies were completely understood. And then, quietly, the narrative just changed. Make no mistake, this wasn't some accidental leak. This was a deliberate, calculated release of files that they never, ever originally intended for us to fully understand.
Okay, let's talk about this specific number, 161. That is the exact number of highly classified, deeply buried files that the Pentagon quietly dropped into the public domain back in 2026. We're talking about astronaut testimonies, military footage, Apollo mission transcripts, and reports of mysterious objects tracked by multi-million-dollar military systems. 161 pieces of a massive puzzle that were kept under lock and key. The sheer volume of this data dump is staggering, isn't it? And it immediately begs the question, what exactly prompted the Pentagon to just surrender 161 closely guarded secrets all at once?
Now take a look at the massive, deafening gap in this timeline. We've got anomalies reported during Gemini 7 in 1965, Apollo 11 in 69, and Apollo 17 in 72. And then, absolutely nothing, a decades-long void of total silence before this sudden 2026 disclosure. Putting on our skeptical journalist hats here, we really need to stare at that void. Why did the government sit on these specific space anomalies for over half a century? What was the actual risk of telling the public back then, and why has that risk seemingly just vanished today?
Section 1. Unsealing the Apollo Anomalies.
To truly grasp the magnitude of what was hidden from us, look at this direct observation from Buzz Aldrin. Unexplained light sources. For decades, the historical public record painted this picture of a sterile, perfectly understood, dead lunar environment. Yet locked away in these 161 files, we find one of humanity's most celebrated pioneers describing unexplained lights on the moon. It directly contradicts the pristine, clinical, totally sanitized narrative we were all taught in school.
And the evidence just keeps building. Here we have Alan Bean's bizarre testimony from Apollo 12, where he describes particles escaping the moon. We are literally layering testimony upon testimony from national heroes here. These aren't blurry, out-of-focus photographs or secondhand rumors. These are official mission reports that were deliberately scrubbed from the public eye. It builds an overwhelming wall of evidence suggesting that the reality of our lunar missions was far stranger and honestly far more active than the public was ever meant to know.
This Gemini 7 communication is particularly chilling to me. Bogey at 10 o'clock high. Looks like a 4th of July out there. This absolutely cements the consistency of these space anomalies. It wasn't just an isolated trick of the light on one random mission. It was a recurring phenomenon. Which totally forces us to ask, why did NASA and the Pentagon feel it was absolutely crucial to keep these specific, highly consistent observations completely quiet?
So the real crux of the issue is this: why unseal NASA's secrets today? If these astronaut reports were considered way too sensitive or maybe too misunderstood to release in the 1960s and 70s, what exactly is the motive behind revealing them right now? Information is currency, folks. And in the world of military intelligence, you do not spend that currency without a very clear strategic reason. What is the tactical advantage of showing us these decades-old anomalies today?
Section 2. Unresolved Combat Zone Encounters.
Let's see how this builds into the modern era. The 2026 disclosure also includes deeply unsettling reports of modern military encounters in Iraq, classified footage from Syria, incidents over the UAE, right alongside civilian sightings that were serious enough to trigger direct FBI interviews. Let's be clear, these aren't just flashing lights in the dark sky. These are unidentified objects operating with impunity in active combat zones, being tracked by the most sophisticated, state-of-the-art radar and targeting systems on the entire planet.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real core of the mystery. The official status stamped on these military encounters is unresolved. Just think about the implications of that word for a second. The most technologically advanced, powerful military apparatus on the face of the Earth is publicly admitting, in writing no less, that they have absolutely no answers for what is violating their airspace in active war zones. As an investigator, you have to wonder, do they truly not know? Or is unresolved just a convenient new layer of classification?
We have to look past the sheer awe of watching this newly declassified footage and ask a very grounded, practical question. Are they preparing us or distracting us? Releasing combat zone UAP files at this exact moment in history is a highly calculated move. Is this disclosure meant to slowly acclimate the public to a new reality? Or is this incredible data dump actually designed to pull our eyes away from something else entirely?
Section 3. The politics of disclosure. Because a secret this big doesn't just accidentally fall onto the internet, right? Consider the stark contrast we're looking at here. On one hand, we have decades of institutional public ridicule. Anyone who reported a UAP was dismissed, their credibility was totally attacked. On the other hand, we have this sudden, intense congressional pressure and executive directives basically demanding transparency. The juxtaposition is deeply suspicious. How do you go from actively destroying careers over a topic to suddenly passing laws demanding the military open their vaults? These institutional puzzle pieces don't fit together naturally. They were forced.
So, the actual catalyst for this specific release in 2026 was a directive connected to the Donald Trump administration. This directive essentially forced the Pentagon's hand, legally compelling the release of these 161 hidden files. Now, regardless of where you stand politically, the completely objective reality here is that it took a mandate from the highest office to finally break through the Pentagon's stonewalling. It really highlights just how fiercely the military intelligence community wanted to keep these documents in the dark.
And this shift in tone is entirely bipartisan. We can look back to Barack Obama stating, statistically, life probably exists. When you start connecting these dots across totally different administrations, you see a completely unified shift at the executive level. We go from absolute denial to openly acknowledging the probability of the unknown to finally forcing the declassification of the hard data. The political elite clearly know that something fundamentally changed, which made that old policy of absolute secrecy completely obsolete.
Section 4. Questioning the true motive.
Pulling all these threads together, let's just summarize the sheer scale of what we've unpacked today. We've got the Apollo 11, 12, and 17 anomalies revealed to the world. We've got active combat zone footage declassified and officially labeled unresolved. We've got bipartisan political directives forcing the military's hand, which resulted in 161 highly sensitive files being dumped simultaneously. But notice this, nowhere in this entire disclosure does the government explicitly confirm extraterrestrial life. Instead, they've handed us a highly calculated, meticulously curated data dump that raises 1,000 new questions while technically answering 0 of them.
Which leaves us with this final, genuinely chilling thought to consider. We spend so much time analyzing the blurry lights in the sky and the unresolved radar blips. But perhaps we're looking in the wrong direction entirely. Maybe the real question was never whether we are alone. Maybe it's why those in power spent decades making absolutely sure we never asked. The 2026 Pentagon disclosure doesn't just reveal anomalies in our airspace. It reveals a profound and unsettling truth about power, secrecy, and the extraordinary lengths institutions will go to in order to control a narrative. So keep questioning what you see, and more importantly, question why you are suddenly being allowed to see it.